As you can see, we're down to 0 on this, and it no longer works. And you will need to buy a new one of these units right here to get this to have 30 more charges again, but we're going to fix that for you. So the first thing we're going to do is take it apart, pull the batteries out. Just like that. And the first thing we're going to need to do is take out these 3 screws so we can get the back plate completely taken off. Once you have everything unscrewed, this whole thing will just pull apart. And then you have the whole internal part of the apparatus. So now I'll unplug the mask, which is this right here, just to get rid of that. Then there's going to be a bunch of these smaller screws right here that need to be unscrewed to take the main board off. So we'll start unscrewing all those. Then once you have all the screws undone, there's just a couple of these little pins that help. They're just plastic pins that help hold this whole board in. So you just kind of pull up on it and it'll pull off the pins. You may need to get something kind of underneath the edge, like a screwdriver, to kind of pick it up. So now once you get it off, that's all good. Then the back side of this is where you're actually going to be doing your work, is on here with the wiring. This right here is actually the little screen that was showing you your numbers before. We don't need that because it's always going to show 0 from now on out anyway. And I want to use that little hole for something anyway, so we'll just get rid of this. Okay, push that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I've cut 2 pieces of wire that I'm going to use as my wires. So I'm just going to put a little bit of flux on them. And I'm just going to tin them really quick so that they've got a little bit of solder on them that hopefully is going to make this process go a little bit smoother. So I'm just going to get a little solder on. And then we're going to be ready for the next step. So now I have this little micro switch that I got from, I think probably from Radio Shack, that cost me about $1 or maybe less. That way I can put a little switch on this, so we have a switch to actually turn it on and turn it off. So that's what we'll be using for the actual switch. And now next I'm going to solder onto the middle and one of the other contacts for the on position, so the power will go into the middle part of the switch, and then whichever side I put the other wire on will be the outbound power once it's coming out of the power. So so next up we'll solder that in. Alright, so here we are with the switch, and I'm just going to take one of my wires and I'm going to feed it in through the little hole that's in that contactor right there and kind of bend it down and around so that it's kind of on there. And then I'm going to get the solder out and I'm going to put a piece of solder on there so it holds it in place. So set this down. Looks like we might have enough on there just to hold that wire in place. Get it from the back side. That should be pretty good. And then I'll do that again with the second wire on this piece right here. And that should be pretty good on there now. Alright, so here's my switch. I've got my two wires soldered onto it. That'll work where that's the off position and then that'll be the on position. So I'm going to use the hole where the screen used to be mounted and I'm just going to drop the wires right through there and put this switch in. It's not quite going to work out the way I wanted it to just because these pins stick up a little bit too far on the back, and then when you put this piece back in, it's gonna hit it where the screen used to connect. So for now I'm probably just gonna leave it loose where this is kind of maybe hanging out of the top a little bit like this, just so I can switch it on and switch it off. Ultimately I might cut a little notch in the side here where the two pieces go together and just kind of create a little spot where this switch might be able to fit in the side right here. So just cut a little tiny notch in there to notch that either in this piece or in this piece, one of the two, to get that to fit. So we'll see, but for now I'll just put it in through the hole just so we can show you how to get this thing all wired up and working again for you first. Okay, so we've got our switch put in here just through the hole loosely. I've got my two wires here. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to take our main power wire, which is the one off the center of the switch here, and we're going to connect it to this pin right here, which is off of actually one of the battery leads on the other side. So that just goes through. We're going to attach it to there, and then we're going to attach the second wire, this one, which is the switch on lead. Okay. All right, so we're just going to take this wire and put it down here. Get that on there. Just trying to be careful that I don't melt the circuit board at all. It feels like it's on there pretty good though. Now, okay, so we have our first wire right here, which is going to the main power, and then the second wire is going to go to this pin right here. So either this pin or this copper exposed piece right here. You can go to either one of those, but it's probably easiest just to go to the one that already has some solder on it. So we're going to take our second wire and we're going to put it right on there. So I'm just going to kind of push this switch through so it's got a little slack, and then I'm going to take this and I'm going to just put it right back in the way that it came out. So that's going to fit into there, and these little white tabs are going to push back through the little holes, and it's just going to hold that whole thing in. So now I've got my wires running underneath and just coming out to the switch right here. Not the prettiest, but it's going to get you by and functional. So from there we can start screwing things back together. So you can just and then once you have all the screws back in, we can just take this, these two pieces of the battery terminals, just slide into these slots right here. You can see that. So it just slides in right there. And then this whole thing just goes back together like that. We can put our 3 screws that hold this together back in. So now we're all back together, and now we just have to put the batteries in. Slip the back cover back on. Now we're all good to go. We take our plug in for our mask. And we get that plugged back in. And then we flip the switch. And we get a fully working mask once again. So now all you have to do is flip that switch, shuts it off. You're going to have to set your cell phone or something for a 10-minute timer where the timer won't work on this like it used to when you push the button. That was the problem in the first place. Every time you push the button and it counts down the timer, it takes one off of the countdown and it gets to 0 and you can't use it anymore. Now the battery's just bypassing all of that, going straight to the switch, and you're all good to go.